Alrighty, good evening. Welcome to our budget meeting today. Who's going to kick us off?
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. I think the first item we're going to review is the library budget before we kick off the 2027 budget work session. So we'll go ahead and call Carrie. I'm sure she's excited to present her last budget.
Good evening. Can you hear me? All right. So yes, I get to come every year, and I like to share a couple of highlights before we get into the mundane numbers. So hopefully you all got to see our annual reports. One thing I do want to highlight, we just hit the 1-year mark of our partnership with United Way of Harvey and Marion counties and NMC Health, that we have a social worker who is employed by United Way, but her office is in the library. It's been a fantastic partnership. She's open to anyone in the community who needs assistance navigating social resources and networks, because sometimes that can be really daunting to people. So we just renewed and signed an MOU for a second year. There's expansion on the horizon for that to potentially bring in another navigator. I was looking it up. Even though social workers in libraries is a much talked about topic, numbers aren't clear, but probably less than 2% of library buildings in the United States have some sort of social work assistance program inside their walls. So it makes us pretty special. And it's a great example of the type of partnerships that we look for and that really benefit the community. I also want to share in April, another great partnership. We were able to bring in acclaimed author Gordon Corman. He's written more than 100 books. He published his first book when he was 14, and he came in with funding from the Florence Bessemer Foundation, and he actually visited all of the elementary schools in Newton, so all the 3rd and 4th graders, both middle schools. We brought in St. Mary kids, and he did a presentation at the library, so about 1,000 people got to hear him speak, so that was something that we were able to coordinate with the schools. We were able to purchase a few copies of his works for the school libraries to supplement their collections and really encourage the students to read his books before and after his visits. So again, we're always looking for ways that we can partner and enhance with all the good things that are already going on. As you know, we have now been in our new library 2 years. We were just talking about how time flies. Wow. Hard to believe, 2 years. Wow. Obviously, when we first opened, we saw massive growth. To give you an idea of what I mean, so if you compare the first 6 months of this year to the first 6 months of 2023, which is our last full year in the library, you can see that physical item circulation is up about 23%, digital circulation is up 88%, and visits, people coming in the door, is up 113%. And the thing is, you know, you see that explosive growth, and the question is, do we sustain it? And actually, we do. So last month was the largest checkout month in my tenure anyway. We checked out over 15,000 items, physical items. And also, we had the largest visit count since our grand opening month. So we had over 11,000 people come in the door. So that growth is sustained. It wasn't a blip on the radar. We are continuing to operate at a new normal that is definitely enhanced since our old building. So with that, the actual budget. So you have this. I don't want to bore you. Our budgets are really pretty incremental. You know, there's nothing surprising, no large changes here. You all are generally concerned about that column on the left. That's our tax levy funding. That is where the bulk of our funding does come from. We do have other sources that you can see represented. So South Central Kansas Library System, they give out grants and aid. We see a little money that flows in from the state library. Senior Mill is the county level program that supports purchasing large print books that go out in our delivery service to homebound and older adults. And then library income is always our catch-all. So that's interest off of our investments, that's donations, that's money people pay for photocopies, anything that doesn't essentially fall in the other categories. So I've highlighted the 2026 numbers. And the percentages there on the right, so you can see essentially on the tax levy side, this represents a 7% budget increase. So in the grand scheme of things, relatively small increase that will, with valuations being what they are, be a slight mill levy increase. The good news is we're still, if my mill levy math is correct, which mill levy math is terrible, that still puts us lower than our high point. We kind of peaked around 2019 with our mill levy, and it's been down since then. So we're still should be under that level. So again, we're very much in sort of maintenance, incremental. We've got the same kind of cost increases that everyone else sees. We do see particular challenges in the collection area because with the advent and importance of digital collections, those collections are extremely expensive to maintain. They now account for about 25% of our total circulation, but about 40 to 45% of our adult circulation. We see the most rise in people wanting digital audiobook lending. And on a library side, a single digital audiobook runs usually between about $70 and $100. And those are usually licensed for a limited time, usually like 2 years or so many checkouts. So if it's still popular in 2.5 years, you have to buy it again if you want it available. And so that's one of the factors that's really driving collection costs. Plus there are increases in book costs and processing of those books as well, but those are smaller, more incremental changes. I'm happy to answer any questions, but again, I don't want to bore you with every line item. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
So tax levy is looking at going up.
Yes.
Are any of the other columns going up? Are you receiving any additional revenue from SCKLS or state or any?
So SCKLS, that is, and I don't know if you know, so Kansas has regional library systems. Those are funded through taxpayer dollars of people who live outside of established library taxing districts. So if you live in rural Newton, you have a Newton address, but you don't live in the city limits and pay taxes to the Newton Library, you pay a tiny tax to the regional library systems. And then they provide staff that do support and training for member libraries, but they also provide grants. And this year, our Sickles grant was actually up. Part of their formula, in addition to our population, is how many out-of-district borrowers we have. In other words, people who have Newton Library cards but don't live inside of the city limits of Newton. We track all of that. And so this year, ours was actually up more than we anticipated. We don't know until spring of the actual year what it really is. So we do anticipate that that is going to grow because we have a lot more card holders now. Otherwise, state level is dropping. It's a small pot to start with. Senior mill has stayed stable for a number of years, although it used to be quite a bit higher than it is now. And we do anticipate just what interest rates are doing in investment income on that is going to drop. We do have endowed funds with our foundation. So we are working to build those. We have a great foundation board that's really trying to put some new growth into those endowed funds because they do provide important long-term stable funding, roughly around $30,000. So we hope to continue to grow that, but again, that's very small growth over time.
And if I could just jump in on that fund mill levy math, we're going to get to this later on in our presentation, but when we prepared the state budget forms, actually to meet their need, their mill levy remains steady. There's a couple of, again, oddities. One thing included is that the motor vehicle tax isn't wrapped up in that first equation, so that adds to that, but we do account for it in there. And again, the fun things that become the mill levy math. So when we put it in our draft state budget forms, their mill levy to ask for the dollars that they've requested is actually flat from last year.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry for that clarification.
Yes, no, I appreciate it. I can't do mill levy math.
Can you explain what are collection costs for digital? How does, I
Okay.
just don't do anything digital, so I don't understand that.
So, and one thing that's actually incredibly helpful is in Kansas, there is what's called the Sunflower eLibrary Consortium. So the company is Overdrive. If you use the app, it's Libby. And that is the only service that we currently pay for. There are others that other libraries may have, but we only pay for one. And so we go in comparable to a regular collection and we buy books. But, you know, if you go buy a Kindle book, you might pay, I don't know, $10, $15 through Amazon. We're paying $60, maybe $75 for most of those titles. There are a few cheaper. And they continue to add additional licensing restrictions. So again, they'll expire after 26 checkouts, 52 checkouts. If you want to pay more, you get 52 or 1 or 2 years. And again, we're seeing particularly the audiobooks, which is because they know that that is what is growing in popularity. It used to be they would run 40 to 60. Now they're running 60 to, I've seen them as high as 120. I actually looked today, one of our bestsellers that's currently on top of my holds list, to get the ebook and to get the audiobook is $150 for just the digital side. And the problem is, not the problem, but the reality is, we still have to buy a print book. Like, so in the past, you would buy a print book, you'd buy a large print book, you might buy an audio CD. That might cost you $80-ish. Well, now you're buying a print book, maybe a large print book if it's popular, and you're buying an ebook, and you're buying an audiobook. So now you're looking at $190 for one title in all of the formats that people want. So it's really, there are some efforts, and people have tried on a legislative level to kind of get publishers to charge closer in line with consumer pricing. But because there are limited services available, libraries don't have a lot of options if they want to provide that service. And in fact, the company that we use, I believe, is still the only one that's Kindle compatible. So that's the bulk of e-reader users, so you can't really get around them. And again, it's just a budget reality.
Thank you.
Yes.
How's your building doing?
Building is lovely. Yes. Although I confess that sometimes when we get heavy rains, we all still get nervous because we're like, no water leaks.
Oh,
Life is great. It's lovely. No, it is. And we still continue to get, we did actually have somebody walk in not that long ago and ask if we renovated. And that was kind of humorous. Like, it's a whole new building. But it is a lovely space. And again,
Wow.
you see, like, yes, material usage is going up, but it's the visit counts that are really going up. And that's because people are coming to the programs, they're using the meeting rooms, they're using the study rooms, they're using the computers. The collection is still an integral part of what we do, but now it's so much more that we are able to do. And it's a really exciting place.
It really is.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
No?
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your new venture.
Thank you. I will miss you all. Thank you for supporting the library.
Mhm.
We have a great community.
Yes, we do. All righty.
Alrighty. We will continue on with the budget work session on the city funds. So let's kick this off. The first slide you have in front of you is a rehash of the next few slides are a repeat of the last work session. So I'll hit those highlights very quickly before we go into the meat and potatoes. So the 2027 budget from your direction was a stabilizing year. Our focus identified opportunities where we were able to optimize our spending. What does that mean? We looked at ways that we can better use our cash, whether that's extending the life of a piece of equipment, whether that's moving funds from one bucket to another fund, or looking at partnerships, which I know that is part of our strategic plan. Let's see, next item, next slide. Our strategic priorities, a reminder, we have 3 strategic priorities which were confirmed earlier this year in the strategic planning session: to sustain exceptional public service, to create a welcoming place to call home, and to plan and grow for the future. So our approach to the 2027 budget, some assumptions that I'd like to remind you of. As far as the personnel budgets, we maintained the merit system for our staff, which is a 3% step program. What is new is the COLA. So the COLA, the percentage of the COLA. Last year, we had a compensation study, and we received a recommendation to mirror or benchmark our inflation rate or our labor rate to what the COLA is. And according to our HR director, ECI, the Employment Cost Index, I think she used a 12-year trending was around 3.4%, which I guess signifies that the 3% we were budgeting is right in line with what is trending. So I thought I'd mention that. Department budgets, the direction for the leadership team was to remain as flat as possible, to look at decreasing lines in your contractual and your commodities lines if there was an increase in a different line. So if you're increasing somewhere, you decrease somewhere else. Also, we looked at our MER transfers to see is there room to extend the life of a piece of equipment so as to reduce the amount of the transfer. Our contractual budgets, we requested that the leadership team or designees look at contracts. We sign a lot of contracts. We have a lot of contractual commitments, and those commitments come with a 3 or 4 year cost associated with it. Now, it is all subject to cash basis law and subject to the approval of a budget. But that being said, sometimes, it's kind of like your AT&T bill. When you get an increase all of a sudden, you pick up the phone and you call and you see if they'll do anything for you. We also looked at bundling of services and combining across departments. Naturally, through the process of looking at our contractual requirements, I think our leadership team has done a great job of asking questions of what's possible, and that in turn has led to conversations across departments of, well, what are you doing, and what am I doing, and how can we do that together better? We are constantly pursuing grants and cost-sharing opportunities. We have one for you this evening. And IT is evaluating improvements to streamlining and consolidating services. I'll let Rebecca talk a little bit about this there's a fiber project we just did that was a citywide project.
So, yeah, one of the items that we've been able to do has been on our wish list and our bucket list for a long time. Most of our outlier city buildings were so far remote that they were using very outdated modes of internet, namely radio internet, which is highly unstable, caused a lot of outages, a lot of staff time to get it back up, a lot of contractual services because you had to hire somebody that was had expertise in radio internet. We are now moving all of our locations to high-speed fiber, which will have a cost savings after the implementation costs are recouped. So that's really exciting. It also means that they can reliably utilize the software and the programs that we're trying to roll out so we can continue to measure and track. It's really hard to ask your employees to utilize those software programs when the very thing that they're running on is not necessarily as reliable as it probably should be. So that's a really exciting thing. We've also gone through, and it goes to contracts. There's a lot of things that kind of fall into your IT contract bucket. And so consolidating all of those, asking, making sure that everyone's paying the best rate or the government rate, or, that one division or one department isn't seen by that vendor as something different or that everyone's getting the best deal possible. So some good consolidation there.
Thank you,
overall.
Rebecca. Something else we did this year is we did some trending in lines that might have an outlier in a year. For example, if we looked at a 3 to 5 year trend and we saw a high number, and then we took the high number and budgeted that for the following year, we trended it, and if that number is, if the trend seemed lower, we asked a question, does it need to continue to be high because you had one high year? It allowed for a conversation of, I know we had a high year, does that mean we need to continue having a high year? Or I know we had a low year, does that mean we have to continue having a low year? We also will talk about credit card fees here shortly, and transfer. We looked at our transfers out. So, what's different about our budget process? Well, you are hearing a lot more from me than you have in the last 2 years, and less from your department heads. I'm not sure how they feel about that, but please feel free to ask them any question you have throughout this process. They are all ready. We focused less on the departments individually and looked at the budget as a whole. We also looked at a cash funding philosophy, which is perhaps a little bit different because we don't operate on a cash basis accounting structure. We use GAAP, and it's a little difficult to look at cash revenues, expenses, ending cash when you're using a fund balance. That includes depreciation. It includes your balance sheet, and so we're trying something new to see if this sticks and if it works, because this might open up a different opportunity, which might lead to maybe shifting the way we present our financials. That's a conversation for another day. I'll kick off the external challenges to Rebecca. She'll talk about those a little.
Of course. So these are, as a reminder, some items that we touched on just briefly, but the next 2 slides are also items that you asked us to bring back to you at this meeting. One are that we always have as kind of our unknown is our upcoming federal and state mandates. Legislation changes, and we have to be responsive, and sometimes we don't have a full budget cycle to be responsive. We have debt obligations of the city for aging infrastructure. We're really excited that we're over 150 years old now, but that also means it's time to replace some things. As you might remember, during the survey that happened in the 2020 year, we talked about willingness to pay with some of our residents. That's still a continual piece through all of our surveying, is balancing the services that they expect with the willingness to pay portion. So it's always trying to find that middle line. We also want to continue to look at the benefits and the costs of prior city commission's actions and those commitments and projects. There still are some things that may affect decisions today that were made by prior governing bodies. We have to remain competitive with our neighboring communities, and that spreads across all of our departments, whether it's in our personnel salaries or our development agreements. We don't live in a bubble or a vacuum, so we have to maintain that competition. Just like the library was speaking of, costs associated with software, hardware, and data security continue to rise, and they also aren't places where we have as much negotiation, and they don't look like they're going to shrink anytime soon. Again, some of our buildings are getting a little bit older, and those maintenance costs continue to increase. And then the item that we continually keep on our mind is 14% of our staff are eligible for retirement. So succession planning and what that looks like and what our staffing needs look like is definitely at the forefront.
I think we just need to raise the retirement age by 5 years here in the city of Newton.
Duly noted.
End of story.
They may have different thoughts.
Yeah.
Some of the potential legislative impacts, I'm not going to read through all of this, but House Bill 2745, we expect this to come back. We are looking at, and Baker Tilly's here with us tonight, Ben can speak to this. We are looking to have some sort of action from the state legislature that would constrain our spending power, our power to set the mill levy. We are also looking at potential bonding and debt impact. So some of the bills that we've seen would also tie your ability to do those types of options or invest in development opportunities to whatever the new bill that would be. Revenue neutral rate has also been tied into that. As we learned this system, there's also been looked at new systems, and a lot of those impacts come with, if they were passed, and pretty much immediate implementation, which is always a challenge for us, as that falls by the time we're about halfway through our internal budget process. Another piece comes from the federal level. In the big beautiful bill, as at the federal level, there's going to be some state level cuts that are going to potentially affect how they're going to be doing services. Again, these are kind of possibilities, but they are looking more certain as we look into our crystal globe. Okay. Here are some revenue assumptions, as you're going to see some projections following. Baker Tilly was kind enough to put to us a model for projections. We're going to call it our resilience model. So we're not expecting any catastrophic event, nor are we expecting any sort of windfall. So ad valorem is sitting at about a growth of approximately 1%. Sales tax revenue is about 1 to 2%, which is on trend for where we've been about the past 6 years. Charges for services about 1%. Utility revenue is projected to remain flat because it's fairly flat, and also transient guest tax. Some of those have some bumps, but that's our projection assumptions as we look forward. This sheet is impossible to read on a screen, but you have one on your packet. It's still very small, and I apologize. This is your forecast out to 2031. I can speak briefly on it, but I would defer to Ben for the specifics as he and his team built this. The key points I would note is that while we currently, and for the past couple of years, are deficit spending, we're spending out of our reserves, out of our savings, that model is not sustainable going into the future with the assumptions that we've plugged in. You will notice that by 2030, that model will put us into the negative. So not that we have to do anything at the moment, but something to be aware of. And Ben, I don't know if you have any other, as our financial advisor.
Yeah, we've used this model on other entities back in 2008 when the housing market crashed, but more recently when COVID hit. What it allows, it's a management tool. It allows management and us as financial advisors to come in and say, what if, right? Give you what if scenarios. We're constantly living in the next year, always 12 months out. But once in a while, as you go through the budget process, it's nice to say, well, especially for a city manager, to think about what's needed in 4 years, what's needed in 3 years, and then what's that impact? What we can do is modify some of the revenues if there's a cycle, an upward cycle, say in sales tax, in spending. If you get a new retailer come on, what does that look like? And how does that affect how does that affect your revenues in the general fund? Same thing for the expenses. If you hire a new police officer, firefighter, what does that look like long term? And so it allows us to kind of, if you will, in my vernacular, playground. It builds a sandbox for us that we can start looking at some of that.
Gotten that covered for right now. I'm going to go ahead and move on to our bond and interest fund review. This slide is very similar to what you saw the last budget session. The only thing that is different is we are going to try to maintain the mill levy. We'll talk more about why we're suggesting in the bond and interest fund to retain the mill levy. Some of the major projects that are in our CIP, which often are bonded, include infrastructure like work on Hillside, Spencer, the rail spur, Fisher Field is part of that, but those are funded through usually the PVC and other ways. Golf course improvements, public safety study, public works study, of course the C-Clip, Plum Street Bridge, the golf course clubhouse improvements, and you notice we just did an intent to bond for 2026 street projects as well. So all of those projects go into that document, and then we have to work to figure out exactly when the bonding year is. So what we have done, and I think I'm one slide away from it. Yeah, I'll get to it. What we have done is worked with Baker Tilly to do that projection. So one thing to note on that projection is that it is a snapshot in time, and we decided as staff, because this is kind of a moving target as we prepare from one budget session to the next, that we would take that snapshot in time as of 2 weeks ago. So that means there's a lot of new growth and development that's right on the doorstep that is not included currently in that bond and interest projection. That would be a lot of the things maybe at the airport or the downtown corridor or your logistics park. It would be the implementation of the comprehensive plan if you chose to fund some of those things. It would include some of that maintenance that we know is coming up on your existing buildings, or implementation of those plans, or any quality of life amenities that maybe we've talked about and discussed, but they didn't make it in there. So again, there will be a lot of time to continue to discuss about this. As staff, we really would like to have some time this fall, maybe in October, to go project by project and get your all input and help us rank and give us an order of priority. But for this budget work session, we just took a snapshot of our projections from what you had seen at the last budget workshop without really making a lot of edits, and came up with this bond and interest sheet, which again is very tiny, and I apologize, but you do have a printed copy. What Baker Tilly was able to do for us was reverse engineer all of Donna's very hard work and make it where it is now able to be done by somebody like me with not as much experience or knowledge, of being able to put in the projects on the years, set the bond year, and it automatically fills in, tied to the different accounts that it would be paid from. So utility revenue, economic development funds, general funds. And you can see here as those projects come on, one thing that's this is a little bit different than the CIP, and this is the way we've done it for many, many years. Donna always would carry two separate numbers, is that the project might start in a year, it might complete the next year, but when we bond it is a little different. So you'll see a delay maybe in some big, you can see some big numbers coming up. That would be because the projects would probably be starting a year or two prior, but that would be the bonding year. I don't know if you wanted to speak any more to this very complicated and very fun spreadsheet we now have.
Yeah, and I'm not going to bore you with mechanisms, but one of the points in a debt service fund is really to gauge if everything happened exactly the way it should. A project, if somebody said the project's going to be built in 12 months, it's 12 months on the dot, and you have debt service that next year and everything happens, you want to be as conservative as possible with the overview, and that's what we've done here. So obviously, there's a lot of things that can happen with a project. You hit bedrock, you can hit anything that you don't otherwise see, and it extends or delays a project. Cost is another factor, obviously, and as you move forward with projects, inflating those costs are going to be important, and that's part of the underlying spreadsheets that you don't see that Rebecca uses. So that's the other thing we're able to do is actually use Donna's work to get back to something we will recognize. So that was helpful too.
And then for the nuts and bolts, and again, we'll bring this up a little bit later in our presentation when we go through scenarios, but this is also a fund we've been deficit spending in. And you'll notice that kind of peters off here in 32. And so there's going to be some options for you to kind of address that if those projects that you're wanting are still what you're wanting to see done. So just wanted to let you know. Donna would always say, it's just written here, that's in the future, that's without anybody touching it or anybody moving it around, which is true, but just like to get some feedback as we get a little further into our potential scenarios that we've built for you. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna,
So are we going to go, when are we going to know what these numbers are? Like hover over them and see that this number represents this project or these group, you know,
That's a
further
great,
in this presentation, or is that an October conversation?
at this point, I had assumed that would be an October conversation because of the years, because we have 5 years out where we're still in a really good position that city staff can probably actually get the projects done with our capacity. So putting till October for more prioritization would probably be an option. But if you need us to go through those projects step by step now, we can always pivot. Mm-hmm.
It's good to map the CIP to the projects, to the plan, so that we know where they're coming from. And I'm not so worried about the 28, 29 and out years.
Sure. Right.
Today, but for the 27 budget, yes.
You want to know what's in the 27 budget? Yes. Actually, I can pull that up for you if you want to. If you can give me
I'll talk while
1
you're
minute.
pulling that
Yeah.
up. We decided to do this in the fall for mainly two reasons. The biggest reason is but we don't have a finance director. Ben is filling in, and we've been backfilling or reverse engineering, if that's right, into the spreadsheets to see how they work. And now that we've figured, is it safe to say? Can we say we've figured it, now that we've figured it out, what we're doing is we're combining the city CIP, we're combining that as one big spreadsheet. So we didn't, I think it's also safe to say that we didn't have one CIP spreadsheet with all of the departments.
Right.
Because some, and I say all the departments, whether it's PBC, whether it's grant funded, whether it's bonded, whether it's paid with cash, whether it's at the airport, we did not have one sheet combined. And that helps us determine whether or not we can carry it in the bonded indebtedness fund. So now that we're not, I don't think we're quite done yet. And so that's why we said we'll do this in October. We are done with 2027. We do have that.
That's the one
Okay.
that matters for today's conversation.
Right.
It's just,
So for your 2027, again, bonding year would be a little different, but it would be the bridge at the golf course. There's a lot of private work that would be just, if we would bond, it would be because it's through petition process. So that's a lot of our housing developments right now. We have a culvert replacement and a sewer extension on 12th. We have in a couple of items that were penciled in to be on your agenda for tonight later on at the airport that are not all out. And then we also have some 50% splits of some items at the airport, including some hangar work that is on there. And then the rest of it is all your road items. So after those studies that you already heard me speak about, it would be that roadway rehab that you've just approved at your last meeting, the C-CLIP. We have a little bit of funds set aside for right-of-way purchase, which we'd probably do cash with. We wouldn't be bonding it. And then the 27 C-CLIP.
Go back up
Go back.
a few line items to that wood bridge at Sand Creek
Yes.
Golf. What number is plugged in for that?
We had 50, but we just heard today that that's probably going to need to be updated, 50,000.
Updated up
Yes.
Yeah.
to,
100 or 150,000.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe Ed can speak a little bit more to that, but we thought it was just planks and it ends up being beams or much more structural than we anticipated.
Okay.
So,
and we'll contract that out, you think, or do it in-house or?
Yeah, what our hope is to do, the Plum Street Bridge, we are putting out for bid this fall, and we want to use the same contractor if possible to save a little dollars there, so that if that contractor's already in town, to get a price from that contractor to come in and do that wood bridge at the golf course. The planks and stuff, we talked with Dustin a little bit. We haven't made final decisions, but we may be able to do some of that in-house, but the big pieces underneath it, trying to get equipment in there, using the epoxy that they use to fill the cracks and do all that. We want to use the expert that we would already have in town to do the Plum Street Bridge.
Makes sense.
So do I understand correctly on the CIP? I'm thinking CIP, I'm thinking of that list that has all of the projects. Is
Right.
that what you're going to be putting out? It's just not there yet?
So you all received a copy of where we were at the last budget work
Okay,
session.
that,
And we pretty much just took that and on a not as easy to read Excel spreadsheet, we connected it to a bond year that was our best estimate with the Public Works Director and the city engineer and myself of when the project could possibly be completed and then bonded. Because it's a little different. There's a little bit of a lag time. Some of the ones that are for 2026 are already plugged in. So your rail extension, your hillside work and your Spencer work are already plugged in because they were holds from the previous year. We assumed they would be done sooner. So those had already been rolled into that. Again, some things are moved because of timelines. You know, we've talked a lot about First Street. That's in 28 because, again, timelines move. The project may start sooner, but it's not going to finish. And then when are you going to bond it? So that's what makes this a little bit different than your CIP, but really hasn't been very many edits to your CIP that you saw last time. This is just moving the dates of when they would go as an estimate of when they would be bonded.
Okay.
And again, we're really looking forward to our work session where we can make sure that the priorities are all aligning and go through the projects probably for the upcoming 5 years and see where they land with some sort of scoring matrix and other fun things. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Okay.
So at the last work session, we talked, your request was that we bring forward the cost associated with credit card fees for the city as a whole. And you wanted us to bring some options of what those fees look like and how much we would save if we pass that on. So what you have in front of you, I believe you had last time, and it shows that we're spending about, let's see, $260,000 across the city for taking a credit card, whether it's a utility bill, whether it's a city permit, or even an EMS bill if someone comes and pays a bill to us. Now, as you can see in 2025, from 2025 to 2026, that number has decreased. That was from an effort to renegotiate our fees, and we were able to really bring that down. So the next slide really just gives you the options of we can either decide to pass on the entire fee and thus save about $250,000 in our utility funds. We could decide to pass on half of it. We could decide to pass on none and continue doing what we're doing, which is just charging the dollar fee for paying it online. Really open to a conversation. If you have any questions regarding that, the direction is very important, I would say probably today, because we are looking at using a different system to run our credit cards through. It would have a similar credit card rate, so we would still spend the same amount of dollars. But before we move to that system, the finance team has requested some direction as to whether or not they should set up the system to pass on that credit card fee or to mirror the current setup.
Where do we stand on alternative payment methods so that people could avoid any fees?
Sure. So the current options we have is the first one we have is you can come into City Hall during business hours and pay your bill. You can also pay your bill at a drop box we have right outside of City Hall. We have an ACH, an auto draft, which is also free. You just need to come and bring a check and we'll get it drafted on the same day every month. We also have this new system that will have an opportunity for us to pay, to take, I believe, Venmo and Cash App, your third party. If you don't have a checking account, but you have this app, you can pay with that.
Is there a fee associated with those?
No,
Okay,
no.
so,
Because those companies pay the customer has to pay their fee to those companies.
Yes.
Yeah, and not to us.
right.
I believe I'm missing one. Do I have another one?
Will we be able to do ACH not associated with a recurring payment, but a one-time ACH?
Oh, great question. I don't know that I have.
I believe they can take it over the phone.
Yes, that sounds
Okay.
right. That sounds right. We'll confirm that, but I believe that you can.
With the
make-
dollar fee, or will the new system? Because I know we were paying another fee if we used the secure phone payment side.
Yeah, that additional fee is is separate, and I don't recall off the top of my head on
Well,
that.
if we can make a pivot to another vendor that gives us more options that would allow our citizens to avoid the fee on the credit card side, I mean, it just solves itself, I think.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to, if there is anything to pass it on and for us not to pay any
Yeah.
of it. That just doesn't make sense.
We can't keep doing that.
No.
Are we talking about the, like when someone comes in, physically comes in and to pay using a credit card or debit card, they're not using online services, is it the same amount? The fee is the same amount?
The credit card fee would be the same amount, yes. The additional dollar fee or something, that would be the platform online. But if you do come into City Hall with your credit card, it would still be that fee being charged.
Does debit card avoid the fee? It should.
Probably not.
Question. I wonder
I'm
if,
looking to see if I can get that answer for you.
yeah.
Debit card and check, you asked, right, Rich?
Check under a non-recurring, so a one-time check,
Yeah.
and then does debit card avoid the fee versus a credit card?
Okay.
Oftentimes it does.
Now, Leroy, were you saying that it didn't make sense to have,
For us to pay any of those fees.
for the city to be?
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I would agree with that
Yep.
too.
Everybody else in the world
It's-
passes on the fees. Why
exactly,
would we?
Yeah, and it's a convenience fee too, I mean, kind of pretty much because, I mean, when we go to convenience stores, we pay extra, even if we get same thing at Dillon's. For a couple dollars cheaper, we pay a little extra because of the convenience, so.
Sure.
I mean, it's just, it's a matter of choice. If you want to pay the extra, fine, if not, we can, of course, we may you lose some of, well, the money that I guess we wouldn't really need it if we didn't have all these transactions, though. Are we going to lose money that we make off of the fees? Technically, because we
We don't
pay?
make any, then no, we don't make any.
Oh, okay.
This is just would be an expense that we would
It's a
no longer
pass-through,
bear.
and it's.
But I mean, like currently do we? I'm trying to.
We don't
I
charge
have it
it,
in my head.
we don't charge more than the
credit
fee
card
that
fee.
is paid.
Than what the company charges us.
Right.
Okay, so we don't
We
actually
don't
make
charge,
any money.
right,
off of
no,
that anymore.
no.
So, okay,
No,
gotcha.
we're just paying the fee.
Pay.
Yeah, we get a bill every month and we pay the fee.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
And that fee ranges, I mean, it could be as low as 2%, so sometimes it's as high as 6%, depending on the credit card being used. Yeah.
No, yeah, I would agree.
What are the, I don't know if you can tell me this, but what are the range of payments that come through that system other than the utility? Like, that would be a monthly fee, where it would be a one-time fee? Through the permitting?
Define,
Is
Permitting,
there any of the court fees
licensees and
come through
court.
that?
yeah.
Those are the top
Fines.
3.
So on those options, what are the options? I'm really, if there is a one-time ACH, that could be potential. What are the other options then for somebody who's who's building something and is just going to pay one time? A check or one of the apps or an ACH, one-time ACH, yeah.
Yeah, or
Or
cash.
Yeah.
We still accept cash, right?
Yes.
Yes. I will,
No pay.
Making sure.
before the commission meeting, I will confirm that we will be able to take an ACH via a check as a one-time. I will confirm that. My gut tells me that that's what was mentioned. I can't find it in the correspondence I have with our
'Cause I know the
assistant
old-
finance director, but
No, the old system, you could only do ACH if you were on recurring.
recurring, correct. Correct.
We could do better.
Do you know, are there any municipalities in Kansas that accept crypto payments yet? I was
That's a great question.
corresponding with
That is a
somebody in
good
Seattle today, and they said, yeah, it's a common thing up there.
Really?
That you can make a variety of municipal payments through crypto.
Do crypto?
BTC or ETH, whatever.
You got to make crypto money to make crypto payments.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just fake money.
Not off the top of my head, Leroy, but I do know that a lot of municipalities are going to expanded systems because people want different ways to pay. And they're willing to make those, they're willing to pay to use those more convenient systems. As long as we offer options to pay for residents who don't want to pay that,
Yeah,
Right.
and we do.
As long as it doesn't cost us more to provide that option.
exactly.
And as long as residents have multiple, it doesn't have to be all, the options to avoid it costing them more to do business with the city. I'm fine.
Okay. What we can do is,
I would rather not see us go that direction at all.
okay.
I mean, I don't know. I just don't really, when something is as unknown to me as that is.
What direction, Kathy?
Yeah.
She's just.
Yeah, we're not talking about crypto.
Oh, I thought you were, because
What?
he asked the
That was-
question about,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, so
Yeah.
it might be nice to get that conversation redirected to the topic then.
I doubt whether it's going to happen here in our lifetime.
Well, that would be good. I heard one.
I think we have a plan moving forward and crypto's aside.
Yes, yes,
Good.
yes, yes.
We will bring a more fully developed plan forward at a commission meeting so we can outline what we do take, what we won't take. This was more just general direction as we speak with the vendor of the new system.
Yeah, and I think that would be really great. One of the things we've been told with the vendor and with the expanded options that are non-banked options is that they're expecting that we're going to have less people missing their bills. That,
Especially if you can go, oh crap, I didn't pay it from your sofa and just get it
right.
done.
So we're actually expecting a lot less shut-offs from it, so. Okay. Moving maybe right along. All right. Next
Oh.
up is airport.
Yeah, airport fund. This is, we didn't necessarily discuss this at our last work session, but this was an item of discussion at the city-county work session, the airport fund itself. So as you know, from that work session, we talked about the airport fund and the health of the airport fund. So I wanted to bring to your attention one item that we mentioned to the county that we would be bringing back to them. And I've been working with Brian on ensuring that the fund is as what I would call as tight and as lean as possible, so that we can really see where cash is at the end of the year. That in turn allowed us to do a projection at the request of the county to do a formal request of the amount that we would like for them to pay going forward. And that request is outlined on the financial that you have in front of you in green. Based on the needs for the airport, based on Brian's input on his equipment and the replacement of kind of the major items, based on personnel costs, his contractuals, and his commodities, which you can see are pretty steady, we believe it would be a good step to up our contributions to around $150,000. So for the city, what does that mean? Well, we're collecting about $125,000. That is budgeted for 2026. $150,000 would be, I don't know, somewhere in the realm of like 0.2 mils that the airport would need, in my professional opinion. The county, we would be asking that they match that naturally, since it's a city-county airport. The next slide will give you some options so that you can give us some direction on what to ask of the county. Now, I'll call your attention to the reserve policy and the ending cash balance. You should have a 10-year or a 12, 15-year projection in front of you, but just looking back to 2024 to now, the last couple of years, we've had a negative net profit or a deficit, and we've drawn down our cash. The drawing down out of our cash has put us in a place where we do need to make a decision. Now, deciding to leave everything as is a decision, but we would like your direction. And if you see the reserve policy, which shows generally our funds, according to our policy should stay around a 5% cash reserve. You can see that we're falling below that in our airport. So we would like, I'm sure Brian would prefer to have some cash in the airport fund to, if he has an emergency or he has a need to spend in the fund. He's able to carry those expenses. But in the last few years, I mean, we've even had to reverse some of the equipment transfers because his cash has been tight. And what we see, if you look at the last 15 years, you'll see that he has had moderate increases on the expense side, but his revenue is not keeping up. Now, that is a fund in and of itself picture, but when you look at it from a macro level, the amount of impact of the airport is not reflected in this fund. It is much more than this fund, and I'm sure that Brian would love to tell you about that if you'd like to talk about the last 10 to 15 years and what the airport has brought to our community. But I know that you know that, and I know that the 150,000 is really not outside of the realm of a prudent increase based on what CPI, based on what the airport is doing. Now, it may be quite an increase for the county, and that's where we would like your input. So the next slide really just threw some options out here for your direction. The first one was the city, we could increase our allocation and call it good. Does that get us where we want to go? And when I say we, I'm talking about myself. Probably not. It wouldn't get us to the cash reserves that we would like. But it is an option. We can just increase our portion and call it good. Oh, I'm sorry. I did put in here that we would request that the county do the same. Excuse me. Sorry about that. That is also an option. We could either increase it ourselves and not ask the county for the match. Our hope and our recommendation was that we ask the county for that match. We let them know we would be asking for a match. We just need some direction that is the case. Option 2 would be to reallocate mills from the general fund. Still, instead of increasing the mill levy, it would just be shifting mill levies, 0.2 or whatever that exact amount is, shift it to the airport and reduce that general fund mill levy. Again, we would still ask the county to match that increase. Another option, and one I don't recommend, but it is an option, is to leave the allocation at where it's at and balance the fund by reducing the airport expenses like we have the last 2 years. I will mention that there's a caveat to that. The caveat is at the end of 2026, seeing that we have, an ending cash balance of 30,000, that if a mower goes out or we have to pay some extra overtime or there is a reason that would use that 30, we have an accounts payable that, is a month or two in arrears, that 30,000 goes really quick in a $2 million budget. So if the decision to not move forward this year and just leave everything the same, it would really mean cutting back those transfers. And we're in the process of purchasing a fuel truck. The airport is in a very much growth stage. It would be something I wouldn't recommend, but it is an option, and then we would make do with what we have. And then option 4 is we hold our levy and we ask the county to match our amount, which is the 0.635 mils. So we just ask them to match us. We leave ours the same. I'm sure there are a myriad of other options for the funding of this fund, or the adequate funding of the airport fund. So I'd really like your thoughts on where you'd like for this fund, what this funding should look like. You can see that we've estimated revenue pretty much. I think it's very, very conservative. Our expenses are also conservative. The 3 to 6% increase on wages, and then I believe it's a 1% increase on contractuals. The equipment and capital number, that 106,000. So Brian poured over his MER. We were able to take some things on, add some things, take some things off, add some things on. And that 106,000 is really a baseline of what we need to set aside to replace aging infrastructure at the airport. He even extended the life of some things, and actually there are some items he just removed and said, we're just not going to replace that, we can do without. Yeah. So really open to a conversation here. Would you like, if you have any questions about this fund?
Hey, Brian, the $120,000 in additional rent leases, is that calculated off the newly extended and negotiated stuff? We can hit that?
Yes. Is it on? Yeah. Yes, that is taking into account not only new leases that we've signed, but also valuation increase. We have a automatic percentage increase year over year for leases on hangars and buildings, not the ground, but hangars and buildings that we lease. So that's including that increase in lease rate every year. Excuse me.
I noticed you have fuel going down. Are you selling less, or is that the market charging less?
No, we're selling less, so we're trying to be conservative on that because we've seen a downward trend year over year. This year, I mean, 2022 was great, and then 2025 was terrible. So we are seeing a little better than 2025, but we're trying to keep it conservative. We don't know what Shield AI is going to do. Shield AI may blow everything out of the water completely with fuel sales.
I would have that meeting. I would have that special meetings for you to adjust your budget because you're selling more fuel.
Exactly.
Duly noted.
I mean, we've heard numbers anywhere from, up to 6,000 gallons a day. I mean, 6,000 gallons a month of jet fuel would be a good month for us. 6,000 gallons a day would be unbelievable. So when I worked through my budget in 2027, I think we used 1,000 gallons a day just as a conservative number, but even that. But the nice thing about fuel is that we only buy it if we sell it. So there's an equivalent expenditure line with the revenue line. So if we're not buying it, we don't need to, or if we're not selling it, we don't need to go out and buy it. So that kind of works out. So we can shoot for the moon, and then if we don't hit it, we're okay because we didn't buy it either. We didn't spend the money on it either. So.
Well, it just makes logical sense. I know the county has their own budget issues. I get that. But it just makes logical sense. If we're going to go up to, and I agree, we need to go up to 150, is ask them to match us because we are equal partners out there.
I really like option 2, move the mills where the expense is, but I ask the county to match.
And I will say, when I started in 2012, no, I was here in 2014, sorry. 2014, the mill was actually 0.65 mils at the time, and it was lowered because the valuations kept going up. It was actually lowered, I believe, in 2017, 2018. Even though our match went up, the mill came down because of the valuation. And had we left it the same, we'd probably be right where we're at, what we're requesting at this point in time. So.
I think for clarity, and I mean, the mill lives where the expense and everything is.
Correct.
Where would you shift this from in the general fund? Where?
Sure. That is dependent on the next conversation of whether or not you take the increase in the assessed valuation.
Okay.
So we could take the dollars from that increase and shift it to, am I saying that correctly? Yeah.
Lots of options, and each one's dependent on the next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll keep chugging along. I'll let Rebecca kick this conversation off. These are the budget enhancements, which are the personnel requests.
Sure, and this is just a copy of what you've seen last. There were 6 positions that were asked for during the department budget requests. We've been through these once before, but we'll go through them again really quickly. Administration, we're looking for a management analyst. That's just to help offset the increased workload and project-specific items that are coming our way. Fire and EMS asked for 3 firefighter AMTs. This was a follow-up to an ask that they'd had a number of years before when they asked for 6 and were given 3, so they brought that request back. Engineering, at the request of some of this body, brought back for an additional code enforcement officer to meet those needs. And then our CVB and Main Street work is definitely picking up, and so there's been an ask for an additional person to help fill that. That would get us to 1 full-time equivalent of a CVB person and 1 FTE of a Main Street coordinator, but we'd have shared jobs to make sure we're maximizing each position the best way possible. So on the options side, I don't know, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll take the next one.
So these are where we're looking for direction, especially because that'll really depend on where these mill options sit. So the general fund positions can be funded with the increase in valuation if you chose to take the full increase in assessed valuation in general fund. Fire and EMS positions are 100% funded through the general fund. The code enforcement position would be 30% funded. The other parts in sanitation and something I just forgot. And another utility. And then the management analyst is also 100% in general fund. Oh, right below
That
that.
math isn't mathing on, for me on there.
Sorry, where are we at?
So you got code enforcement on the first bullet at 30%, and then you've got it adding up to 100% on the
Right,
next bullet.
so that's because, there, thank you. You found my other note. So that is the split of the code enforcement position. It's 50% sanitation, 20% sewer, and 30% engineering. So these are two options here. In the first option, the sanitation and sewer funds could take in that increase because they're healthy enough. And then the rest of those full 5 positions that share in the general fund could be paid if you took the whole increase in valuation. Or another option is that if you chose, and it sounds like there's some consensus, to pass on the credit card fees, there'd be some cost savings, especially in the utilities. It's almost all in utilities, that would help offset that code enforcement position when we could look at a different split or we could work something out there. So that kind of goes with the next bullet points, that if you wanted to keep the code enforcement position, some ways that we could fund it would be funding it with the current split that it has, or any option thereof, or we could look at using some sort of contractual service or other items, or we could hold off hiring. So again, just looking for some direction on that position there.
The next personal enhancement was from the fire EMS department. And I know that the fire EMS department has asked, I think it was 22, was it 22 or 21? There was a request for 6 positions, and I think we've been able to fund 3 of those positions. They've been making do with those 3, and with the request of the county for additional funding, the hope was that we were able to fund additional positions. That the county funding didn't fall through. The Harvey County managers and fire chiefs are getting together this fall to put together somewhat of a task force, if you will, to determine what the best option going forward, because these costs continue to go up. In the meantime, the request is for 3 additional staff members for the fire EMS department. So some options, these would need to be funded out of general fund, and the recommendation would be that you take the increase in the assessed valuation to fund these positions. Another option would be to hold off altogether. Actually, there's another option that's not on here. We could hold off altogether. We just closed our RFP process for the public safety analysis. Our hope, the reason for the public safety analysis is if we are growing. And with that growth, we thought it would be prudent to update our long-term plans for both our police and fire department. But with that comes an opportunity to look at our facilities and our staffing. Once we have a finished product, that may or may not, more likely, according to our chief, and I know our chief is not here today, but would likely prove to, it would prove to recommend additional staffing. But that being said, my recommendation is that we hold off on hiring these positions, whether you fund them or not, until we have that public safety study, because that recommendation, we are asking sort of this think outside the box ethos, I'm not sure what to call it, so as to give us options to continue to fund our fire EMS services and not necessarily compound it with additional staffing. And I know everyone in the region and the country is coming across the same issue, but we're opening our minds to what the fire EMS department could look like. Also our chief, our police department could look like.
So theoretically, if we funded 3 positions for half a year or 3 positions for a quarter, meaning waiting until you get that report and it says, yeah, we need it, how would these numbers look?
Oh, sure. So if you decide to fund these contingent on the outcome of a public safety study, the study, I believe the timeline is through the spring. These studies take a while to implement, so it could be, I mean, I'm thinking fall, a year from now before
Right.
we implement those. So that cash, if you will, would be earmarked in the department budget for future staffing, I mean, it could just be a hold. Those 3 staff positions would come forward to you because any new position would have to
Right.
come forward. So,
So we don't, under that theory, we don't need to fund 3 positions for a year. We could put a plug in the budget and fund 3 positions for 6 months,
Sure.
contingent upon a study that supports the need, and then it coming back to this body to actually fill.
Sure.
So that would take whatever that line item is and have it from what it is today to what gets presented down the road.
sure. Okay.
Thoughts?
Does that,
I
know that's a little- that's
I'm hesitant to fund a position that off of my gut or anything, but if we have a study that's already going to do that for us, then that helps us understand the true need, the type of need.
Sure.
It helps us sell it to the community and base it on data and supporting evidence rather than we think we need 3 more.
Sure. And I know Chief's not here. Chief and I have monthly conversations about staffing and the need, we can prove that the staffing is tough with our current staffing levels. Chief does a great job of managing with his staff, and we have interlocals and great relationships with our partners here in the county. He thought it was the right time to ask because of we have an aging workforce. We have people who are moving into different positions. The need for calls have increased, and we've been able to, again, weather the storm. And he said, well, if there is an opportunity to fund these, this is the time. So, but that being said, he also we understand that this study may or may not show that we need 3. Maybe it comes back and says we need 6. I don't know.
Right, yeah, and it could.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the part that's troubling to me is if our chief thinks those positions are needed,
Yes, he does.
what if the study says no? I don't, that's what troubles me.
Oh,
is
okay.
I don't want to fall into, well, I'm going to accept a study when the chief says this is really, I mean, he needed these 6 positions, what, a few years ago?
Yeah, 5
And,
5 years ago,
and, yeah.
4 years ago. Yeah.
And so I feel like if he's asking for them and he's been patient and waiting for them,
Sure.
we have to have this
hear ya.
study? I mean, is this,
Well, Kathy, to give you a little bit more context, the study, my hope for the study, and I would say that the hope from Chief's perspective is not necessarily just looking at the structure now, it's looking at what the structure could be of the department. So in its current structure, yes, they may need 3 more members. Actually, I've heard that could even be as high as another 5 members.
And it could also be another station over here to better serve
right?
and
But
apparatus.
for the immediate,
Sure.
and has been immediate probably for a few years now, that's,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
No, you are absolutely right. The request and the need is 3 individuals today. Correct.
because I think the last time we talked, and Rich and I had mentioned this both, is where I'm trusting that we're going to get to that, is when we looked at ending fund balance and we looked at the cash reserves and we looked at what we were going to accept in these revenues versus what we could use to spend out of cash reserves. Do you remember that conversation?
Yes,
So are we
I
headed
do.
in that direction?
Yes, we are. And perhaps maybe we go there so you can see what that looks like before
Yeah.
you entertain these. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so, because we need to see that. I
Absolutely.
do, so that I know what I want to do with this.
Got it. Got it. I'll just go through these real quick and then keep
Okay.
going. Yeah, you don't, no decision made right now. The CVB Main Street position, again, we can, like Rebecca mentioned, deficit spend, which means that we just draw down the transient guest tax. You can also split that between the general fund and the transient guest tax. And you can also decide not to fund the position and just realign the projects that we currently have. And same goes for the management analyst. You could fund it at a general fund. This would be 100%, or we could just hold off and realign projects. So, okay. The next, you had requested a mill levy comparison, which I think we provided last time, but also dollars in relation to those mill levies to kind of paint a picture of how our dollars have been increasing. And before we get to the levy history, I thought I'd take a minute to talk about inflation. And I think it just gives you perspective, more for me, because it helps paint a picture of what the value of our dollar is. And I know CPI is not the best benchmark. I don't know if Ben has a better benchmark, but it's one that I thought it was worth just showing on the screen. But CPI is published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it gives us an idea of what the price of what households buy, like gas and like rent, and what as a resident of this community, what I'm paying. And it's indexed from 1984. I think it's 84.
Yeah.
The best year ever. And we use a calendar year average, and from that date up through today, we can tell you what the value of a dollar buys you today. So if you use that model, and on the right, there's a nominal levy growth, which means in 2016, I think that's how far back we went, $6.1 million is now $13.6 million. Using inflation during those same years, $6.19 million is, that $13 million is really $9 million in purchasing power. So the increase is not 120%, which is the nominal on paper, what the growth is. It's actually 54%. Now that's still real growth. That's still an increase, but it gives you an idea that it wasn't $6-7 million of increase in dollars because of inflation. I know it's a general, benchmark, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
The other side of that is the CPI is Consumer Price Index.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Municipalities don't buy what consumers buy.
Good
What we buy is totally
Good point.
different.
There's an index called municipal cost
Yes,
index.
there is.
Oh.
That's
that
where I
Smart
was
Cities
going.
put out.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's the one we track. And before we came in here, I saw that slide, and it was
That's
just
where I was going.
the same data. They're just a couple degrees off.
Do you know if it's higher or lower? Do you know?
Well, if you look at the 2016 $1,
Yeah.
the 2027 is 72 cents.
Okay.
So it's right there in the same mark. The 43% is around 38. So
Okay.
it's in that same
Okay, thank you.
same value. No,
Cool.
what's different is year to year that can escalate
Right.
and drop, but it averages out, right?
Gotcha. Thank you. Good point. Okay, the mill levy history is next. If you have any specific questions, please let us know. But we added the ad valorem dollars collected based on that mill levy beside the mill levy, and then added the assessed valuation on the right-hand side. You can see that our bond and interest has increased and decreased over the years, depending on what our debt load has been. I'm assuming based on our projects, whether we're in a heavy development year or not.
I don't have that slide.
It's prior.
Just-
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry,
just
did I
the
mix them
bridge.
up?
Okay,
Before the ones
okay.
that we were.
Yeah.
It's the-
Daniela
Okay,
just gave them in a different order.
it's okay. I was just like, I was lost.
Okay.
Oh, right here.
Okay. a reminder, the next slide is a reminder, and again, the slides where you decide whether or not you take the assessed valuation might determine if you fund these. But just a reminder that we have about $40,000 in external agency funding requests. Won't go into details on those. I will pass on the assumption and the modeling to Rebecca.
Okay. Well, let's start with our estimated assessed valuation. As you know, this is a fun time of year where we have a number now, and it will change after we approve the budget. So our final assessed valuation as of November 1st was right there at that 180 mark. July 1's estimated is 108, and that's about a 4.2% increase. So each mill increased by about $7,679. One thing you saw in last city commission meeting when we proposed the revenue neutral rate, exceeding revenue neutral rate, was that we do have, as part of our assessed valuation, about $1 million in new growth that came on this year. Now, we can't tell how much of that's residential or commercial, but I did want to note that it is nice to see that we have new items coming on with all of the work that we're working on. And now to the scenarios. We've crafted 3.5 scenarios. There are limitless scenarios, so these are just starting points. Everything is subject to being edited. So in scenario 1, this maintains your revenue neutral rate. This would mean that the number of tax dollars that the city and all the funds, including the library, bring in together remain the same at the 2026 level. To do that, the library has to meet their proposed budget, which means their portion would need to move up. We would need to move their mill levy to basically take the full assessed valuation. Special liability, bond and interest, and the airport, as you can see, to maintain the health of their funds, have to at least take their assessed valuation increase. That means to bring the total mill levy down, to keep those dollars the same, that the cuts would have to come from the general fund only. And then those cuts would be, that reduction number is not correct. It's going to be, need to be a little higher than that. But the general fund cuts will then have to take on the rest of the mill levy. That can be offset. As you said, you're going to pass on some of those credit card fees. That would offset a little bit of that mill levy because those are budgeted expenses. So moving on, here's our math portions. You can see how it's about 120,000. Sorry, I'm very quickly doing math. About where we are seated. Do we have? Nope. Okay. You see that we'd have to take the reductions then in general fund. So this would mean actual cuts to your proposed budget because the other funds have to assume the increase. So we'd have to actually decrease your general fund budget. So if you choose to take revenue neutral rate, because we can't do it across all funds for the health of the funds, then we will need to have a conversation about some actual cuts. It looks like if we did take some of the credit card fees on, it's passing those through, we could reduce, that would be a first place we'd probably start reducing, but we would still need to have some conversations on where those general funds cuts could come from. In scenario 2, we would retain half of the increase in assessed valuation. Again, those mill levies in the special liability, bond and interest, and airport and library have to at least maintain, and the city manager made a case to actually increase the airports. And then we would just take a smaller portion and increase to the general fund. If you chose that, you could potentially help fund one of the position asks. You could also, if you picked one of the ones that use transient guest tax or the credit card fee portion or credit card fees, lots of options there, but you would take a smaller amount into the general fund overall.
Does this one, Kathy, this one specifically, you had mentioned, I know it's throwing it out there, but if you decided to keep half, it gives us, and I'll ask Rebecca to confirm, it gives us about $150,000 to work with. And that could be the EMS positions, that could be whatever you wanted to 50% back, 50%
That could
we
fund
keep.
half of the EMS, that could fund the EMS positions for half a year.
It could, yes, it could.
Good.
Well, and what I'm interested in too is how we relate this to the public, and they think in terms of mills. I know they think of tax increases, yes, but if we can say to them that we are, and I don't know if this is the right terminology, the giving back, or, because I think that's real important. I am weary of seeing all kinds of comments.
Sure.
And yes, there may be a small minority that make the comments, but I guarantee you there are people that will agree and don't say anything. So we really shouldn't think that just the small amount of comments is the extent of how they feel. So I feel like we need to do something to show this community that we have heard them and we are giving back. I'm tired of my taxes, my property taxes going up. Some people think that this commission pockets all kinds of money. We don't.
We all chuckle.
Obviously. And so I want to be able to demonstrate that we have thought this out and what can we do so that we can, and I know it's only the city's portion of the.
That would be a decrease. So if you decide to
right.
take this option, you would
You would
decrease
be
the mill
decreasing
levy.
the mill levy.
How does that calculate out into mills?
We have
It's the, yep.
two more slides
Two more
over.
slides.
2 more slides.
Okay, so 2 more slides. 'cause
Sorry, I got ahead of myself. I wanted,
Oh, yeah, you have the.
I look at the paper. Okay,
Yeah.
go.
okay.
No, it's a little, it is less than a 2 mil decrease, but it is a decrease, about 1.5-ish mils. So, yes, it's always it's a decision on which slide to put in front of which. One thing to note on all these slides for mill levy rates, if you're trying to tie it all together, this does not include motor vehicle tax. That's another portion. It is a total revenue. It's going to show in all your budget worksheets as property tax, because motor vehicle is considered property, but it's not a portion of the mill levy. So we're keeping this to just a mill levy conversation because those other taxes come in, but just so you know, if you're trying to tie it back to all the rest of the budget book that Ben presented, you'll see that difference because these do not include that motor vehicle tax.
And none of these rates have an increase in them. This is a flat rate, right? Is a flat rate or below.
Right.
So any kind of increase is as a result of appreciation of property.
Right.
That's the only reason that increase would take place. It's not based on rates
Right.
increase. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, I understand, yeah. And I've seen some posts out there where people, and I don't remember who, and that's not important, saw one that said, your city is, your local officials are the ones raising your taxes. And so I've tried to explain to people that they go up in 2 different ways. Property valuation increases, so it's just strictly a property valuation increase.
And that's
Their value.
that's ran by the state.
That's ran by the state.
Yeah, well, I've seen those posts where that is being said, go back to your county or your city because it's not the state. Now, I have seen that, and I'm thinking that is an absolute.
Yeah, that's not right.
I mean, I think just scenario 4 for Rich's benefit would be to retain 50% of the increase, maintain the mill levy and special liability bond and interest, airport and library as necessitated. Fund those 3 fire positions for half a year. Pass on all credit card fees and draw down transient tax to fund the Main Street CVB.
And then you would skip funding the management analyst.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give you another a scenario 2.5 for you.
2.5.
This came as we were finalizing our bond and interest and knowing the amount of growth that the city is still working towards very intently. And again, this is just one option. You can make 500 options up here. But you could choose to take the full increase, a portion of the increase, and direct it to bond and interest. And that could potentially allow you to add projects higher on the list this is a little bit of a cart before the horse, kind of trying to peer down your magic mirror a little bit here. We have a lot of projects sitting in very, very potential land. So because they're that way, they're not plugged into your CIP, they're not plugged into your bond and interest, but you know that they're sitting there right on the horizon. So if you wanted to take an option, something like that, and this would prioritize that growth and development, that's something else to think about. It just trying to give as many options
Okay,
as you would like.
fine. If you're going to throw out options, then you get Rich's option 4.5.
Okay, 4.5.
Which
Yes,
is to
sir.
amend the previous one and not do the fire positions in this FYI pending the results from the assessment and the study, because it takes long enough to recruit and find people that you could probably publish the position and have it not even be filled in FY27. So that's 4.5
So 4.5, the only position you would fund would be the Main Street CVB position? Is that
out of the
transient? Yes,
transient.
sir. Yes, sir.
Also, that would give
Do you
us.
want a
the
5?
No.
We can,
We'll be
I
here
think the
all
only
night.
time we have to end is 7 PM for your next scheduled meeting, sir.
I think that would give us plenty of time to work with Ben and finalize that CIP and bring it forward for a pretty
Yeah.
extensive and comprehensive review. Because there are, I know the bond and interest fund shows the next 5 years is pretty steady levy, but you can see that in 31, it drops down.
Plummets.
It's because we've pushed them there. But if you'd like to see, I know we have SS4A, we have safe routes to school, we have airport development. Those
A new
things
light
aren't
pole
reflected
at
in that
Broadway
CIP.
and Main.
What was that, Rich?
We got a new light pole at Broadway and Main.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully insurance will pay for that.
So I'm looking at so much up here, and what is the actual amount of increase in dollars are we getting? Because I see this number of when we do 50%, and I'm seeing 156.
If you
So
give me one, sorry, Kathy, I buried the lead for you. I apologize.
well, no, I'm.
So
because-
you're,
Keep going.
Come on.
I'm going to go in.
So the best is at the bottom?
Well,
Yeah,
no.
she doesn't follow bluff.
So scenario 3 is where you take the full increase, which is about 555.
555, okay.
Took this as the third option because the direction we'd gotten to this point was that was probably not the priority decision. But you can see that you can fund all your positions, and you could probably still put some aside for bond and interest and whatever other projects you may want to do. If you just chose to take the full thing, you could fund the airport at whatever level you needed to without moving mills from the general fund. So this is your flat mill levy option, and you keep them the same. So
Well, just as a baseline, it makes sense to accept 50% of the evaluation increase. And then the rest of it, I think we can, based on the CIPs and the other information that we're going to go over, we can decide that at that point. But I think taking the 50% is the starting point that we need to do, for sure.
Well, and I want to make sure too, for Chief Robertson, that he's okay with half a year. Because if he wants those positions,
You'd
and
be
he
in
wants
favor of
them, I'd be in
hiring this-
favor that. That's my main thing, is that taking, I guess, the half. And Rich, you mentioned the last time, if we were going to do most of this, we would maybe take, I know you didn't want to take anything initially, but if we took some and we used, because I saw the number on the last one, like 17%. Ending, remember that? And we said we knew we had to keep it at 15. We were wondering, we talked about the possibility of using some cash reserves to take care of some things and still end up with the 15%. That's kind of what has been rolling around in my mind in these last few weeks.
So you're talking about general fund and
Yeah, so
Yeah,
getting out the crooked pencil and really tightening the fund balances and
So I can scroll back. We went over this super fast at the beginning, and again, it's a small spreadsheet, and I apologize, but that's what this Outlook model does for you. It's different than the way that Donna used to present it, so I apologize. It's the same information, but it's a little different.
Oh, because there's so many pieces of paper.
So
right.
you'll see that currently the 2027 budget in this model still does show us having those reserved cash balances that we're looking at 15%, and then some additional. And then we haven't gotten to it. It's all of the other, your giant thick budget tables in your book. And again, I would defer to Ben if you want to talk more about where general fund lands and cash balances. But your ending fund balance is supposed to be about $4.8 million in the 2027 budget as it stands, without the additional positions or the additional revenues. Although I think there's a mistake in this one.
Kathy, could you repeat your question about,
So,
I mean, the way this reads is if we're supposed to have a reserve target of 4.071, right? And then the line below it says we're at a surplus of 9 million over that target.
we could draw down cash?
We have a bank account that we can draw down cash. So we need to talk the advantages and disadvantages of doing that. What can we do by doing that, and what would we be hurting ourselves now or in the future if we do that?
And I think I would defer to Ben to double check that number because I just,
That's what we were talking about, Kathy.
yeah, I just double checked
it's not,
on page,
not what it looked like when we were looking at it, and
Yeah, that 9 million seems high.
I think, yeah, because the
I don't
ending
think
fund
that's
balance is
accurate.
supposed to be 4.8, I
Well,
think.
4.8.
yeah, because I'm
I think
thinking
we must-
48.8%.
Yeah, I think we must have an error.
Yeah, in that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Because the budget book has.
Because if we got 9 million over our, then we need to talk.
Well, so
If
if
we
you,
have that, we can pay for everything.
if you could come back with, what it would take to get to the 15% and
Yep.
what we're projecting now, what that difference is, and then plus if we take the 50% of the valuation increase, then that's the amount we have to work with, and then the decision we can make on what we want to include or not include
Got
as
it.
far as,
That's
Got
right.
it.
okay?
That gives us more wiggle room.
And
Yeah.
I will say, I will put this plug in here on the external fundings. I was looking at that senior center and Heart to Heart and Safe Hope.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put a plug in here. We do a lot of things for this community, parks, pools, ball fields, the whole works. And I don't personally feel that 20,000 is too much to ask to encourage our senior population.
I agree.
When you get there, it's a whole different take on life than it is when you are not there.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah.
That's my plug for that. Those are small numbers in comparison to all the needs of other things. So
Yeah.
those are pittance.
The ending cash balance for the general fund for the end of 2025 was $8 million, $8,031,000. At any given month during the year, it can be obviously higher than that because property tax is received like 2 big payments during the year. So that cash can be higher than what it typically would end at.
So we need a new model, because this one's broke.
Yeah, no, right. I think what Rebecca's point was that we've got the model to be able to plug in different scenarios and show you what that looks like. But we'll go back and make sure that what the $9 million shows is actual cash balance projected for that end of the year. Yeah. The 4 million is what lines up with the budget.
Yeah, for 26, we want to know, for the end
for
of 26.
26,
yeah,
right.
the net projection.
Right, and right now, if you spend 26 the way it's been budgeted, it's 4.9 million. And I don't know of a city that overspends that budget. It's usually at 93%.
Yeah, we don't typically do that.
Yeah.
Are
and
you
it's-
talking about
But
the surplus or the, what number when you're saying the four, what?
And this isn't in your book. It's
it'd be the one
I was
that is
gonna write it
erroneously
in.
saying 17 million.
Okay, I was going to write that in, but no, I guess, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I would scratch that projection. We will bring, it sounds like, just a general direction that it looks like if we take
Drawdown
half of
cash to
it,
15%.
15%, bring where we might land for 2026, and that would give us a cash balance to work with for 2027. We'll look at the 50% scenario, and also fund the agency requests.
The externals.
Maybe externals, and then shift that levy to the airport and ask the county for that match.
Yep.
Yes.
Sounds like
And
it.
how much time do we have left with all this? Because this is the 28th of July.
the
We
last
usually
slide,
have
isn't it?
this
It's almost the
decided by
last
now.
We don't have a ton of time, but I will say we typically, I don't know how aware you are of the state cycle and when we have to have budgets adopted, but in a couple of years ago, that cycle was extended to October 1st. It used to be in September.
Okay.
And so we have technically until October 1st. And so from August 15th to September 15th, we have to hold a public hearing. So technically we have until
That point.
August 15th
between August 15th and September 15th to hold our hearing.
to hold the hearing.
Yes.
But before then, we have between now and August the 15th
Yes.
to get this decided.
So on the 11th, we would bring back the information.
Okay,
So it's coming close, but we're still okay.
okay.
But and just to do one minor edit on that, typically cities will have their public hearing the second meeting in September. That gives you as much time as you need. So it's 10 days prior to that publication needs to go out. So it needs to be set by that. So if the public hearing is the 20th of September, you need to publish by the 10th. So ideally, if that's when it's set, now I can't remember when
no.
the public hearing is. Yeah,
Do we have a public hearing?
Well, I was going to say, we set the R&R public hearing.
that's what's up there. Right.
So I think that's still going to have to be held, so that instead of doing them at the same time, you would have two public hearings. You'd have one for R&R, and then you'd have a budget hearing. So
Yeah.
it would split them if we moved this process out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Our practice has been, we get it done and adopted and
Yeah,
moved pretty quickly in the past.
Yeah.
We've really taken our time on this.
we should.
Without Donna heading this up, we've used every minute we could.
This is good. We should.
Yeah,
It's fine.
yeah. It's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, thank you.
Doing the work. Anything else?
I have a comment. I've been saving it. When I'm thinking of choosing among positions that have been requested, I'm interested, especially if we're going to use cash reserves to fund some of these, I'm interested in thinking if there's a way to think about how they are an investment in the community. Some of these, if we create these positions, additional fire positions, they're going to continue to grow which doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, but we will continue to have to fund them. And I'm curious if you can tell us more in the future about this management analyst position, if that potentially allows us to do more development or to do, also potentially the Main Street position, if that's going to potentially increase sales tax by driving traffic on Main Street. Development, expand our tax base. If that would be ways that might be a good investment now.
Sure.
I don't know if you can do that.
Sure.
You know,
I
don't know how to,
in
sort
the
of return on investment.
Yes, we can definitely do that. Yes, we can. We can absolutely do that. This year we started a request for funding on these enhancements. So every department had submitted the return on the investment. Why today? Can you put it off? What does this mean? I mean, we have all that information. So there was a due diligence process in getting them to you. I would be more than happy to bring to you what Chief will be at the next meeting, but I will be more than happy to share with you those details because they are there. I'm sorry, I just don't have them. But yep, great questions.
Well, and then you also commented in here about either that or realigning the projects.
Yes,
Can you?
what that means.
Can you elaborate on that too? Maybe at the next meeting,
Yeah.
if you can.
Yeah.
To so that we know how much you're talking about and where you're going to send that in your staff to do that?
I would love to. And quickly, it's 60 seconds. The easy one is the management analyst, because the management analyst would be a part of the city manager's office. And just to give you an example, in my 2.5 years that I've been here, we have, Rebecca and I have a running project list. And so when something comes up, we're like, ooh, let's put it on the project list. And I have a whiteboard in my office. And it's sort of this like, parking lot, if you will, of things that we would like to do, analysis, projects, team efforts, whatever it may be that we don't necessarily have time for. Some of those are from your requests, like, hey, can you look in this and can you provide some, and these things, they take time. And really what it would be is ensuring that you are aware that these things are in our parking lot and not necessarily, something that we can't put out in the next 2 months because we just don't have time, or things that might have to wait another 6 months because of this staffing. Like, for example, we don't have a finance director. So Rebecca and I have allocated a lot of our time on kind of digging into the details with Ben to ensure that we're all on the same page. So it meant some things got parked in the last few months. So as long as we're communicating with each other and making sure that your expectation of the outcome of some projects on hold are okay, then that's fine. But if there are things that you're like, we really need to push these things forward, then that's when we have a conversation of, okay, do we hire it out or do we? So yes, I would love to have those conversations. These are things that you do need to know so that you can determine whether or not that return on investment is what you would like to see.
Well, I know in my own home, we talk about things that we like to plan on.
Yeah.
And we make note of them, but then we also go, well, that's going to be put on a back burner,
Right.
and that one's, and is that really 100% necessary?
Sure.
And so we know that we have to put things off, and that's why I was wondering, I'm not trying to be critical.
Oh, no, you're.
Are there projects that, because we want to do them and would like to see them done, could they be for another day? That kind of thing. And
Great question.
I know you'll
Yes.
fill us in on that.
Thanks, Kathy.
Anything else?
Could I get a little clarification? Sorry, we got to the calendar, we talked about we had time, but I'd love a little bit of direction on what we expect to see. So what's on our current calendar is that we would have a kind of a wrapped up city manager draft budget that's pretty much got all the pieces. It sounds like we still need some conversation and another work session. What would you like to see happen then?
Okay, well, let's go backwards, all right? What is the last date that we could approve the budget? Is that September 22nd? At a regular commission meeting, right?
August 20, oh no, September, is it the 8th? The hearing on the 8th?
That's when the hearing's
Oh,
We haven't
Right.
published anything yet,
Right.
so.
but the public hearing has to happen before the 15th,
Before September 5th? Yeah.
before September 15th. So the 8th would be the last regular scheduled meeting that we would hold the public hearing.
Right, so that public hearing,
10 days before that.
10 days before that is when it needs to be published.
So the second meeting in August, we would have to have a final.
Yeah, the 25th.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Nope.
Yeah.
If the budget doesn't have to be published until the 1st of October.
Oh, I'm sorry. To the county, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
to the county.
That's just a delivering it to the county.
Right. So, but if
Okay.
we handled the business on the 22nd, we would be able to meet that, right?
No, I think we have to have,
August 15th.
It has to be before September 15th, the budget hearing that we have. Then we have until the 1st of October to get it to the county clerk.
It's just next door.
I know, that doesn't, it
I'm
doesn't
sorry, I
matter.
shouldn't have said October 1st. October 1st is when we have to have it to the county. September 15th is the more important deadline for us.
Okay.
By the 15th, we have to have a public hearing,
And
stating
adopt
the
a
amount of, adopt a budget on the 15th.
By then, so.
which makes the 8th the only currently scheduled meeting you have before the 15th.
Because if you know that some of the cities, they're a long way from a county, so it takes them a day or two to get that to them, so
By
that
mule?
they take that into, yeah, we're very fortunate.
Well, I would always like to err on the side of caution and have it done sooner than later.
So the 8th,
And the 8th is the absolute latest, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So we actually have 2
we got,
meetings left in August.
We could
Can
bring this
we-
forward in a regular scheduled meeting, the next, I mean, I don't
Because you
anticipate,
have a workshop on the 11th for
right.
Safe Routes for All.
right.
Would we have to move that so we, or, I mean,
We can't
if
move
we
that.
need 2
That one
meetings?
can't be moved.
Oh. Okay, so much for that.
We could always schedule something that's not on a regularly scheduled night if you all have availability.
Well, we need to be available because we may need 2 meetings. We may, with all the discussion and looking at some different information, we may not be able to decide that in one meeting. We should not bank on that fact that we'll get this decided. If we could, wonderful, but if not, Leroy, you're looking down here like,
No, I'm just,
what do you think?
do we have anything scheduled for the 25th?
right. The 25th is the not to exceed budget.
That was our
Neat.
publication date. So if you want, we could put the city manager's budget on the 25th, and we could review budget during your August 11th meeting as an actual work item instead of a work session.
So that would be on our agenda
Yeah.
item, one of them. So it would be probably good if we had a light agenda maybe for August the 11th.
I'd rather have something penciled in and be able to cancel it if we don't need it rather than,
I can tell you already that the August 11th agenda is fairly full.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's very
Yeah,
full.
the
Okay.
11th one is very nice. Okay.
So looks like we may have to figure out another evening.
Or you could do a morning, like you have
Yeah.
done, like it could be
after
done.
agenda review.
It could
on
be
the
after
6th.
agenda review if you want to do something like that to extend your day. I mean, it doesn't have to be an evening meeting.
Why don't we do it after, well, I mean.
Yeah, after the, how about the 6th?
After
after
agenda on
agenda
the
review.
6th. Everybody?
6th of August?
Yes.
6th of August, that makes sense to me.
Thank you.
I
be
get it.
So
available.
after our pre-agenda, then we
Yes.
go into budget work session?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like a morning?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, however long it takes, I mean, you know.
yeah,
Morning of the
yeah,
6th.
we have to.
I'm free until 1:30, so.
All
Uh,
right.
Not till 1:30, but
So August
Well,
a couple hours at the most will be good.
after the pre-agenda, okay.
All right.
Okay, we'll have some answers for you.
So we'll then,
put a placeholder in
just
now.
putting that in there, then I'm not going to edit this slide because that has added us an entire work session before that meeting.
Okay.
So still can move things around, but for right now, we'll just add that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All your work. Thank you.
Thank you much. We are adjourned.
That's the workshop that